Hello everybody, my name is Draconic, and today we are going over a brand new race at Driving Empire. That's right, the Sofia Bay Sprint, a 4-turn oval race where you make 4 left turns. Now this race seems kind of mundane at first, but it is actually kind of interesting, and I promise it'll be useful because it's going to come up again and again in quests and all this sort of stuff that you need to get crate keys, to do build a car events, and whatever else. So I have compiled a list of the best cars for this race. Without further ado, we're just going to get right into that list. So starting out last in our 7th position is maybe a surprise if you haven't used it yet, but it is the TVR Sabera Speed 12 or the WZU Hound 24 in-game. It is an ugly Voltex model, but that is besides the point because its stats are pretty busted. I've decided to include it mainly because it's only 200-ish K, and the upgrades are very cheap because of that. And you get a car that can go 274 miles per hour with Titan engines, and it is able to have a really smooth experience with 63% handling. You'll see that the car does slow down accelerating in the top end, like 5th and 6th gear, but from like 2nd to 5th, between there, it is insanely quick, and that makes it great for things like circuit and even cross-country in some bits, because it can almost keep up with like a Jesco in the first bits of cross-country, which I just find insane for such a cheap car. And I've decided to put it on the list because really, 65.2 for such a cheap car is insane. And I think that is probably the best deal you're going to find on this list. And that is why I have placed it in the number 7 position. On to number 6. And next up in the number 6 slot is a very ugly Noble M600 designed and brought to you by Voltex. This car is pretty damn good. Its acceleration is insanely quick. It is able to make it to a good top speed of about 250 to 260 miles an hour, about 257. And with that, the good braking, the great braking, it's really insane braking, and the insane handling, this thing is able to really put in some work. And for a not too expensive car, 63.86 is the time to beat. And that puts it in the number 6 position on this list of vehicles. It's good to consider, and I may recommend buying it, but the only thing I have against it is the looks. On to number 5. Now we're on to the number 5 slot, and it may be a bit of a surprise because it is a $14 million Porsche 917K. Now, it's been in the game for a really long time. This is an old model, but that's probably a good thing because it actually kind of looks like what it's meant to be now. So this car it's always been kind of good, but not really worth talking about since Bugatti existed and you could just buy a Devo. But now, honestly, 14 million for this, it's way too high of a price, and I'd rather buy like the TVR. But technically, it is one of the best cars at this race. With its 250 to 260 mile an hour top speed, crazy fast acceleration, and good handling, the only thing holding this thing back is its bumpy nature. I wouldn't recommend buying it, but it is a pretty good car for this race, and you may surprise some of your opponents. On to number 4. And here is the number 4 fastest Sofia Bay race car, which is the Hennessey Venom F5. This may be another surprise because it's really bad at turning. But if you brake early and use that 350 mile an hour top speed, it can carry you to 62 or 63 seconds in this race, which puts it squarely in one of the best positions for these cars. Honestly, not worth it, but if you're only doing highway in this race, I'd consider it. On to number 3. Entering the top 3, we have the SSC Tuatara. This thing is only a tad slower than the Venom, but it also comes with better brakes, better acceleration, and better handling. So despite being a bit slower, it can claw back a bit of that space in the corners, and it makes up for a kind of good car. You'd be surprised because this thing can do 61.5 or lower at this race, which makes it in the top 3 best on-sale cars for Sofia Bay. On to number 2. In the number 2 position, we have the most expensive track pass car in the game. It is the McLaren Senna GT. Now this car is a pain in the butt. It is unstable, it is annoying, but it is rather quick. With the highest handling of any car in the game at 91% rated. It is able to do this track in 61.2 seconds or lower, probably lower. I'm betting around like 59, 60. It's definitely maybe worth considering, but I wouldn't buy it personally. Definitely stay tuned for the number 1 pick. Before then, let's talk honorable mentions. And now we are on to the honorable mentions. The one on the left is the Tuatara Enraged, and the one on the right is the Koenigsegg Regera. Both of these are insane cars, and they're both capable of around 57 to 58 on this race. I got 57.7 in the Tuatara, my fastest time, and just shy of 57 on the Regera, which means both of these limiteds are, I'd say, the best cars to use for this race, unless you have a supercharged Draconic, which brings us to the #1 place. And here we have it, the #1 best on sale car for Sofia Bay. You probably guessed it already, and that's right, it's the Rimac Nebera, or the Air Nebula in-game. This $5.9-ish million car is pretty much the best car for most races. It'll wipe cross-country, it'll pretty much slap around circuit, and it will destroy Sofia Bay and Drawbridge. This car is currently the best car to buy for all those races. I recommend you pick one up if you don't have one already. And it is capable of smacking down mid to low 58s. And if you happen to be lucky and you happen to have a supercharger on this fast EV, then expect to be even quicker. Even though you can't get the supercharger anymore, those cars without it are still some of the best cars in the game, unless you have off sales. But this car is really the bee's knees for anybody who doesn't have any off sales like Koenigsegg's. It can slap around pretty much anybody if you're good enough with it, so that's all I recommend. And with that said, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day.